Warami Midiga, Dana Yigiata Charmaine Ledden-Lewis. Hello friends, my name is Charmaine Ledden-Lewis and I'm speaking with you from Warada Dharug, which means beautiful Dharug country. I live in the Blue Mountains. I am sitting here in my tiny little studio, and this space is really important to me because I can come out here and be undisturbed. I might hear some birds sometimes or some crickets, but I can create here in this space. And I have all of my art materials and it's a wonderful little space. I hope you have something like that too, where you can escape off into your imagination. That's what I like to do out here. You might be familiar with some of the art that I've created out here. The first book that I worked on was written by Pascoe, and it is this book, Found. It's about a small calf that gets separated from its mum, and the story explores the journey it takes to find its mum again. There's also a hidden story within this book about the stolen generations, of which my family is a part of. If you don't know what the stolen generations are, you might want to read this book. You might even want to ask your parents, but it's worth investigating because it's part of our history. The art that I did in this book was entirely painted with a paint called Gouache. Strange name. Gouache is a little bit like acrylic paint and a little bit like watercolour paint. And what I love about it is its vibrancy. So the paint is really bright in colours and it's really opaque, which means thick and hard to see through. So gouache quite often looks like this. Little tubes of paint that is activated with water, and it's a lot of fun to use. I love painting. The other book that you might have seen that came out last year, it was a really exciting project to work on, because who gets to work on a project with somebody who has won an Olympic gold medal? I did. The book is Born to Run, written by Cathy Freeman, and it's her story of how she chased her dreams and how she overcame the odds to win gold at the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. When I worked on this book, I chose to use pastel. Pastel is a bit like chalk. Here's some pastel here. Looks like chalk, but it's really, really thick, kind of like gouache. It's really vibrant in colour. What you might notice as I hold it, let's have a look at what happens to my fingers. Pastel is like dust. It almost reminds me of ochre, in fact, which a lot of Indigenous art is created with. And what I like is its vibrancy, its opacity, its thickness, but also how it blends. It blends beautifully together, especially on paper. I have another book that's coming out soon. I hope you'll keep your eyes out for it. It's called Charlie's Swim. And I did the artwork in that book with pastels as well. And in fact, I'm really excited to share with you some of the methods that I used to achieve my pastel art. And what I thought we could do is, if you've seen these books, what you may notice with my art, I love to use skies to set the scene. Skies are so dramatic sometimes. If you think of sky and you think, skies, they're blue, I would disagree with you. Quite often they're blue, but quite often they are rich in a myriad of colours, and they're dramatic. And there's clouds and light and shade and all of these different things. And I get really excited about sunsets or stormy skies. Do you ever find yourself gazing at skies and thinking, wow, that sky is magnificent? I do. So today I thought we could do a really dramatic sky. And then what we might do is another technique that I like to play around with. I like to use silhouettes against the dramatic sky. I almost feel like there's two stories happening. The silhouette, which is the scene that you can see, but you can't see the detail of. and the sky itself, the sky which is dramatic and vivid. It might be really bright, or it might be really stormy, or it could be blue with lots of beautiful big white fluffy clouds. So what you'll need for this is some pastels, if you can get your hands on some, or you could use some chalk. You could even use crayons, because essentially what we're doing is we're looking at how we're going to put colour down on paper, how we can blend it to make those skies, the skies that aren't blue. They're the ones that I find really magical. So get some paper, get some art making materials, and let's get creating. Okay, so I hope you have your materials ready. As you can see, I have my paper. I also have my pastels set up, and you might notice that it's forming a bit of a rainbow. I was really inspired while I was waiting for a train the other day. I looked up at the sky and marvelled, as I said, about the clouds. So here is a photo that I took, and I find that quite often it helps to look at photos and really study what's going on. So as you can see here, we are doing a blue sky, but it's not just blue. You might notice that it's blue up the top, a really vibrant blue. But at the back of this picture, behind the clouds, it actually goes down to a really pale blue, almost yellow colour. Now, because art is your own creation, you don't have to copy everything you see in the photo. So I'm not going to use all of these railway lines. I may not even use the trees down here. For now, I just want to get that beautiful, beautiful sky and those clouds and the beautiful softness and how they all sit together. Something to consider when you're making art is composition. Composition is where you put things on the paper. So I'm going to loosely copy this. I might decide to put some more pink clouds up here. And something to consider as well is, where is my light coming from? So the light is hitting these sides of the clouds. So I know that it's coming from over here and shining all the way over onto those clouds. So that's really important to think about, because that's going to tell you where you need to put your light colours and where you need to put your dark colours. Now let's talk about colour. I can see some greys. I can see some golden sort of pale yellow colours and pale pinks, some purples, some blues obviously, a little tiny bit of white. And these are the colours that I've chosen from my pastels, because I'm going to try, and get those colours on the paper. So let's get started. Something else that I like to do is to frame my artwork. So that's why I have this. I'm going to create a frame on this paper. And I'm going to do it to the dimensions of the photo, so to the size of the photo. The photo was taken in landscape. So landscape is this way, portrait is this way. This is landscape. Now the reason I do this, I'm going to only be using this space of the paper. It's giving me a lovely, lovely shape to keep my art within. Also, when I take this tape off, my art will have really sharp, crisp edges. So, let's get our reference photo. I'm going to place that here so that I can look at it and make sure that I'm keeping true to that photo and all the things that I love about it. So we're going to start with the background. and work in layers up. And what I mean by that is I can see right close to me in this picture, there's train lines, there's trees. We're not going to do those. There's clouds. That's in the middle ground. We're not even going to do those yet. Right now, we're going to focus on the background, which is the sky. So I'm taking my blue and I'm going to work from the palest colour up through to the darkest colour that I can see, which is that blue at the top. Remember, we're not looking at the clouds at the moment. So I'm going to start off, because it's nice to blend, I'm actually going to start off with some white. Here goes that beautiful chalky texture. And I'm just going to put in the tiniest bit. Oops, they break really easily. I'm just going to put that in at the bottom of the artwork, just down here. And I'm going to start I'm going to lay some colours down now. And it may not be coming through on the video, but I can see a really pretty lemon yellow, really nice lemon yellow coming through. And then it's blending up, because think of our sunset colours. This was at around sunset. I'm going to bring in those warm golden colours. And eventually it's going to work all its way to blue. For now, I want to blend this, and this is where the magic happens. Get your fingers, and we're just going to blend it all in. See how beautiful and smooth these pastels blend? And it gets really dusty as well. So it's really hard to see because they're pale colours, but I'm starting with those warm colours and moving my way up through the picture. Now, I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. So I'm looking at these blues up here. I'm feeling like this is going to give me what I want. Look at that blue. It's actually very vibrant, so I might tone it down a little bit. And if I look at this picture and I imagine I'm going to divide it in half, that blue is taking up almost half of that picture. So I am going to bring it down to almost halfway through my picture. Just going lightly, just getting some blue colour on there. Now that's a little too blue for my liking, so here is where I'm going to mix my colours. When you paint, quite often you mix on a palette or a tray. With pastels, you mix on the paper, and it's lots of fun. So to lighten this dark blue up a bit, I'm going to take my light blue and go over it. Now you could do this. You could do this with crayons. You could do this with chalk. And you just have to work out in what order you put your colour down. Okay. Now I'm going to check this. We've got our colours there. It's time to blend. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing all of that beautiful rich pigment into the paper. Look at that blending. I really feel like it's quite magical. And we're getting that beautiful variation of dark down to getting lighter. And I thought we could still do a blue sky, but I want to show you that sometimes blue skies aren't just blue. Okay, keep blending. Keep blending. Okay, how's it looking? It's always important to step away from your artwork and have a look. I'm liking how that's blending. Okay, I'm going to add some more colour. Now, let's have a look at those clouds, because that's where I'm up to in my picture. I can see some really dark greys. They're blue greys. So I'm going to start blocking them in. Now this is where you can play around with composition. I don't have to just keep this band of clouds here. For interest, I might put some up here. I might put some down here. You're in control of your artwork. Always remember that. So I'm taking my grey, my dark grey, and I'm going to block in. And I'm just doing little scratchy motions because clouds, I feel, are like that. They're not perfect. They form how they want to. They do what they want to. And so you can too with your art. So let's get these clouds in. There's sort of little ones here and there. I'm going to bring this up because I think it might be interesting that way. When you play around with composition in your art, you're actually controlling the viewer's eye. Can you imagine that? There's magic in art. You are controlling where somebody is going to look. Okay, there's lots of lovely lines of cloud down here, bands of cloud, delicate bands of cloud. Sometimes I feel like I'm dancing on my art paper. Sometimes I can hear music when I'm making art in my head. And I'm dancing along to it. Okay, I'm liking those cloud shapes. They're not exactly the same as this photo, and it's because I'm controlling it. Okay. Now, before I go in and blend, I'm going to bring in some light grey as well because I can see some light grey here. And that's the beauty of clouds, that they have all of these different colours that we quite often don't think about. So, I'm going in with my light grey. Now this is just a starting layer. This is just to get the idea down onto paper. I can go back and rework this. Okay, some more of those beautiful flowy lines down here. Actually, fill in these a bit more too. Now I think I'm ready to blend. So let's see what happens when I push all of this pastel with my finger into the paper. Let's see what comes out. And I'm just using funny little rubbing motions. Sometimes I like to use the edge of my fingers or the tips of my fingers, depending on how much fingertip I want to make contact with the paper. And also with pastel, you can keep it really short and tight, or you can slowly and gently blend it in, depending on your picture. Now what you'll also notice is that there's a lot of dust happening. So when you do this, watch where you blow your pastel dust. Keep blending. Keep pushing that dusty pigment around the paper. I actually find this lots of fun too, because quite often you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. Like I said, art is magical. And the tricky thing with pastel as well is that sometimes you can blend it too much. But I'm okay with this because it's It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. Okay, I'm finding it's not doing too much, so I need to add some more. I'm going back in with my dark grey. I'm just doing those jagged little movements again. I want to emphasize more of that dark grey up here. I wonder if any of you have been to the Blue Mountains. This is a very typical Blue Mountains sunset. Clear, crisp, and kaleidoscopic with colours. Okay, blending, blending, blending. We're going to do something fun in a minute. We're going to add some highlights. Remember when I was talking before about where that light is hitting? Okay, I'm liking where this is going. Now, sometimes you can overblend with pastels and you might have to bring in some sharpness and definition. So you can just go back in with them. You can just go back in and draw with them. I want a little bit more sharpness there and there. Just adding in those details, just to give those clouds some definition. And I'm always going back and looking at my reference photo, seeing what I like about it. What was it that captured me in that beautiful sunset? Okay. Now, you might see a lot of gaps down here. I've left those gaps because we're going to go in and pick up these beautiful little spots of sunlight. Those last parting rays before it's evening. And I'm liking the peachiness of them. This peachy glow. And even some pink. In fact, I'm going to start off with some pink. I'm going to put in some pink here. Not too much, because there's not too much on the image, on the photo. Just going around, adding some pink. And then I'm going to go in with this peach colour. And to emphasise this, what I'm going to do after I blend this is come back in with some dark grey, because that's the side of those little clouds that aren't being hit by the light. And that's also what gives it its 3D quality. Okay, let's give this a little blend and see how it turns out. Remember, we're just trying to get some really pretty colours on the paper right now. And I don't want to drag too much of that grey pigment over those nice peachy colours. Okay, oh, I'm liking this. We're getting some light coming in. I'm going to work this light grey down here. And anytime you see that, oh, we need to lighten this area up because we've got a lot of dark happening up here, just go in again with those light colours, blend them, add the details. And what you'll start to see is your picture turning into a real sky. I actually think I want to bring in some yellow. If we're going too fast, what I might suggest is take a little break, have a look at your artwork and see how you're going, and we can come back again in a couple of minutes. Okay, How are you liking your artwork at the moment? I am liking it. I'm liking my artwork. I'm going back in and lightening up a few areas of cloud with some light blue because I want those little breaks. See those beautiful little breaks in the clouds? Just those little gaps. And I'm just adding them in just for interest, just so that it's not a big block. Also gives your clouds some definition too. So I'm just putting them in where I want them. Remember, you're in control of your art. Okay, I'm liking that. Now I want to bring in some highlights. If you haven't noticed, we're moving from the background of our artwork through to the foreground, and the foreground for us is these beautiful light clouds here. So I'm taking my lemon yellow, if you can see, and this is where I'm going to create some fancy cloud shapes. One up here. And see how it almost feels as though that sunlight is coming through our picture. A little one down here. And remember, we don't have to copy this. So I'm just going to bring some in because I'm imagining now that sun is hitting the bottom of these clouds. So before we go any further, I'm going to blow off the excess dust. And I'm going to give these a really gentle blend, just using my pinky, just to get that softness and keep that light. I'm wiping my pinky as I go because I'm getting very dusty. I just had to go and wash my hands because they were very, very dusty, and I didn't want to lose the vibrancy and the light of that beautiful lemon yellow. So, cleaner hands, I'm going in again. It's kind of like washing your paintbrushes, except these are your paintbrushes. So, let's continue blending this beautiful soft light that's hitting from that sun that's coming over here. And I don't know if you can see, but I feel like the picture is starting to take some shape, starting to get some form. I have to admit, I find this really relaxing to push around some dust on paper. Essentially, that's what I'm doing. But it's satisfying to see the finished result. I'm liking that light. Soft light on soft, gentle afternoon clouds. Now this is where I might reassess my composition. I feel like we need something to happen down here to balance it all out. We need some more light down here because it's moving to dark grey clouds up here. So I want to emphasize this little corner down here. So I'm taking my yellow, adding in these clouds. So remember, they're not featuring in our reference photo, but it doesn't matter. This is where you can use your imagination and you can use your artistic sensibilities. Have faith in yourself. Okay, I'm liking this. I'm really liking what's happening. Maybe a bit more over here. Now, isn't it funny? We're not drawing cloud shapes. You know, the cloud shapes, those big, round, curly sheep clouds that you see often. There's nothing wrong with those cloud shapes, and quite often you see those naturally. But what I like here is that those cloud shapes are here, but we're only highlighting the bottom of them because that sunlight is hitting the bottom of them. And you know what? Those last little rays of sunlight are just kissing these clouds up here. Just ever so. Tiniest little bits of light that come through. What do we think? How's yours looking at home? I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot. Now we might do something that I was talking about earlier, incorporating silhouettes. Now, silhouettes, we have these in our reference picture. We have the silhouettes of trees. We're seeing essentially the back of them. The light, that sunlight, isn't hitting the side of the trees that we can see. So they're just dark. They're in shadow. Essentially, they're just shapes, and that's what I like about silhouettes. I'm going to do some silhouettes now on our picture. What you will need for this is a really, really dark pastel or pencil or crayon. So go and get one of those and come back. Okay, here is another type of pastel. This is a pastel pencil. Looks like a pencil, but it's actually full of pastel. See that? I'm going to use this, and the reason I'm going to use this one is because it's a harder pastel. It's still soft pastel, and I know that's confusing, but it's going to give me the precision I want. So when we were doing our background, it's really blending, isn't it? But with those silhouettes, they're actually quite sharp. They're actually sharp against that soft background. So that's why I'm using this pencil. Now, I don't want the train lines. You might want them, you might want to include them. I am going to play around with some tree shapes. And I think I'm going to put some in over here against that bright, vibrant pocket. So I'm just going to draw some lines. I'm doing some scribbly little branches and leaves and pockets of... They don't have to connect because this is sort of far off in the distance. I'm putting trees at different heights. And see how that's sitting sharp against all of that beautiful softness? I like the contrast there, so I'm going to keep going. Now, when I took this photo, I was focusing up at the sky. But for my artwork, I think I want to put some ground in just to frame it. It's just going to be the tiniest bit of ground. So I'm going to draw in this black line. See these scratchy little shapes, how they can start to look like trees. It's funny how the things that we think look a particular way in our mind actually can look rather different when we look at them. Everything is just made up of shapes. Okay, I want some variation to the ground too. Now, when we talk about composition, I like that in the artwork that I'm creating at the moment, what would you say is the focus? The focus of this artwork is the sky. The tiny little details I'm doing down here, it only emphasizes how dramatic that sky is and how that's the focus of this artwork. Now, something important to mention is that when you're doing a children's book, you have to consider where the text is going to go as well. So if this was for a children's book, I might be able to put some text up here in this heavy blue space. If I put the text over all of this cloud here, it might be difficult to read. So I have to think about those things when I sit down to do an illustration. Okay, I think I want some buildings here too. So I'm just going to add some little rooftops. What do you think this might be? A farm, a barn, house, a shed. This is kind of reminding me of a country scene. Those uninterrupted skies. I think I might even put in a silo. A silo is a big space to contain grain. And you see a lot of those as you move further out west beyond the Blue Mountains. Some more trees here. How's your picture looking? What kind of silhouettes have you incorporated? Have you incorporated some city buildings? Have you incorporated some people maybe, or some animals? If you're doing a children's book, you have to think about the text and what the story's saying. Okay. I'm kind of liking that. I could add some extra details. Perhaps in this farm scene I could put a tractor over here, some farm animals. But for now I might just leave it. And I'm going to show you how much fun it is when you finish an artwork to take off your tape. Final little details. Okay, I'm liking that. Off with the dust. Now let's take off our tape. I'm doing it very gently and slowly. I don't want to rip my paper. Look at that sharp line. And if you like your artwork so much, when you tape around it, it makes it easier to frame. You should be proud of your artwork. You should hang it up on your wall or perhaps gift it to a friend. Oops, I wasn't being gentle enough there. Some of the paper just pulled. That's all right, that happens. I'm going to go very gently, very slowly, kind of like pulling off a band-aid. There we go. Last one. What a good feeling that is. So there's our picture. It doesn't look exactly like the picture that we started with, but like I said, that's okay, because art is about your imagination and how the world around you can inspire you. Like I said, artworks like this feature in my books. Let's have a look. This was one that I really loved enjoying. I really enjoyed doing. Don't know if you can see that, but there's that sunset. And similarly, in Found, those dramatic skies really sometimes set the mood for the story. What kind of moods do you think this artwork's creating? For me, I think it's a nice, gentle easing of the day. The sun's going down, everything's calm, and it's going to be a good night. I hope you enjoyed exploring pastels with me and skies. I hope that I've inspired you to look at the sky in a different way. Next time you're outside, have a look, see what magic there is. Oh, one more detail. Who doesn't love some stars? Artwork is never finished. Okay, I hope you find some good books to read this year. I hope you create lots and lots of art, and I hope to meet you one day. Thank you very much for exploring this with me, and I'll see you soon. Didjirigura, Yanu.